Hey guys, it's Miss Wagers. Today we are working on day 7 and we will be using Zearn lesson 12. Okay, our I can for today is I can compare fractions using benchmarks. So I can compare fractions using benchmarks. And we'll be talking a little bit more about what a benchmark is. When I'm talking about a benchmark, I'm talking about a benchmark fraction. So, as our first example, and you'll see this in your Zearn lesson, so I'm going to give a number line. And on this end, I'm going to have 1. This end we have 0. So exactly halfway in between should be the fraction of 1/2. Okay, the first thing I want to do is let's think about some fractions that are equivalent to 1/2. Okay, now if I use my pattern that we've used before, I can multiply the top and bottom by the same thing. So 1 times 2 and 2 times 2 equals 2/4. So 1/2 and 2/4 are equivalent. I could do the same thing again. I could do 1/2 times 3 on the top and the bottom, and 1/2 times 3. So 1 times 3 is 3. 2 times 3 is 6, is 3/6. Okay, so if you keep going with this pattern, I could keep going and say 1/2 times 4 on the top and the bottom. So 1 times 4 is 4, 2 times 4 is 8. 4/8 would also be equivalent. All of these fractions fall on the same point on the number line. Okay, so these would all be equivalent. If you notice on 1/2, the numerator is always, if I multiply it by 2, I get the denominator. 1 times 2 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 3 times 2 is 6. 4 times 2 is 8. 1/2 is a benchmark fraction that we like to use because it always falls exactly between 0 and 1. So let's move on. Say I have, let me draw a new number line here. New number line. And I'm going to again label it with 0, 1/2, and 1. I want to be able to use these benchmarks of 0, 1/2, and 1 to be able to place other fractions on the number line. So say I have the fraction 1/4. I want to be able to tell if 1/4 is greater than, less than, or equal to 1/2. So if I draw 1/4, I need to see whether it is less than, greater than, or equal to 1/2. So I can do this by drawing a tape diagram. And I'm just going to split it into fourths. Here's 1/4. Do I have more or less than 1/2 of this shaded? Well, I see that I have less. If you were unsure, I could draw another tape diagram of the same size. Ooh, that got funny. Okay, and I'm going to split it into 1/2. Okay, if I shade in 1/2, I can see that I have more shaded in. The important thing is that you make your tape diagrams the same size. So 1/4, I know it's less than 1/2, so I'm going to put it over here somewhere. 1/4. Okay, say I had another fraction, like we'll go with 3/5. Okay, once again, I can draw a tape diagram. Let me actually just line that up with my 1/2 one already. I need it to be the same size. If you're comparing fractions, your diagrams have to be the same size. Split it into 5 pieces. Okay, shade in 3. 1, 2, 3. Well, this time I can see I have a little bit more than half shaded in. So since it's just a little more than half, I'm just going to put it a little bit away from 1/2 on my number line. 3/5. Okay, last thing before we go. If we think back to our pattern that we had with everything equal to 1/2, we said the numerator times 2 equals the denominator. Here I can see if my numerator, 1 times 2, that's equals 2, so that's less than my denominator. That means that it's less than 1/2. 3 times 2 is 6. That's greater than my denominator of 5. So that means it's greater than 1/2. That's a pattern that you can use. So if the numerator times 2 is less than your denominator, it's less than 1/2. And if your numerator times 2 is greater than your denominator, then it's greater than 1/2. All right, have a great day, guys.